get that straight, okay? We don't do crack. We don't do that. Crack is whack.
Can't believe you got a voice like that and you still smoke.
You're the best!
Well, you know, I've cut down a lot.
Yeah.
What would happen if a voice capable of reaching an octave suddenly lost its ability to sing in the middle of a performance? Or what if music legends could no longer sing again, forever? But the true secret behind it is even more terrifying. It could be a conspiracy, an untold pain, or the dark and bitter side of Hollywood. And now we are about to reveal the story of 15 African-American singers who suddenly lost their voices, with secrets that have never been published in any newspaper. 1. Aretha Franklin, the tragedy behind the medications before taking the stage born. In 1942, Aretha Franklin, known as the Queen of Soul, left an indelible mark on music history. However, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, when Aretha had reached the peak of her career, she faced the most terrifying challenge of any singer's life. One night in June 2017, at a grand concert in New York, the bright lights illuminated the stage, and the audience had lined up early, eager to hear the voice of the Queen of Soul. Aretha Franklin was preparing to take the stage, feeling the strong beat of her heart and her sweaty palms. Over the years, her health had been deteriorating, but music remained her only source of strength, the driving force that kept her going. However, when she stood before the microphone and began to sing, something strange happened. Her voice couldn't come out. The sounds were choked instead of the deep, resonant notes she was known for. The audience was stunned, not knowing what was happening. Immediately, she was rushed to the hospital, where doctors could not explain the sudden loss of her voice. There was no clear cause, only that her vocal cords could no longer produce sound normally. For someone like Aretha Franklin, this was not just a physical shock, but a devastating blow to her very soul as an artist. But there was one thing no one knew. Before the performance, Aretha had taken a type of medication that her assistant had prepared for her. It was a routine for her to take daily pills to maintain her health, but no one knew that one of these pills contained a special allergenic substance. This substance, a strange chemical compound, gradually attacked her body, paralyzing her voice and reducing the flexibility of her vocal cords. The assistant, someone Aretha had trusted for many years, may have silently manipulated this tragedy out of jealousy of her incredible talent. On August 16, 2018, Aretha Franklin left this world after a long battle with pancreatic cancer, diabetes, and constant pain. The loss of her voice was the first pain she had to endure, but it became even more excruciating when she didn't realize that the harmless pills she trusted daily were actually destroying her health. The feeling of losing her musical soul, being unable to sing the voice that once echoed around the world, became an unending torment. In her final days, when her body had withered and her hope had almost faded, Aretha passed away quietly, leaving behind an immortal musical legacy, even though her voice was no more. Second, Patti LaBelle, the terrifying moment in the recording studio. Patti LaBelle, born on May 24, 1944, is one of the greatest music icons in R&B, soul, and gospel, with a powerful, soulful voice and the ability to captivate audiences with timeless songs. She became one of the greatest female artists of the 20th century, selling millions of albums and winning countless prestigious music awards. However, in 2009, as Patti was preparing to record a new album she hoped would become one of the greatest works of her career, an unexpected tragedy occurred. In the studio, surrounded by an atmosphere of excitement, she stood before the microphone, ready to hit the emotional high notes of her new song. But when she sang her first note, an odd sensation swept over her. Her voice couldn't reach the high notes as it once did. The high notes she used to easily hit became increasingly difficult, and her voice became hoarse and strained. Patti paused, trying to adjust, but no matter how many times she tried, the sound grew weaker and weaker. Fear and disappointment overwhelmed her, and she couldn't hold back her tears in front of her colleagues. In the following days, she embarked on a journey to find her voice again by seeing specialist doctors. But the results brought another shock. Her voice had weakened due to chronic health issues, from diabetes to high blood pressure, and vocal cord complications from prolonged treatment. Despite her best efforts, her voice would never return to its former glory. The powerful high notes that once defined her were now replaced with weak sounds, leaving her to face the sorrow and helplessness of realizing that a crucial part of her career was lost forever. Patti had no choice but to make the painful decision to cancel the album project she had placed so much hope in. She faced a significant financial loss with millions of dollars invested by the record label, partners, and herself. Everything, from the studio sessions to the promotional campaign and scheduled performances, came to a halt. What seemed like a career on the rise was abruptly cut short by an unforeseen loss. Her voice, her most valuable asset, was no longer hers. Now, though she no longer hits the high notes like she once did, Patti LaBelle continues to surprise the world by shifting her focus to cooking and business. Music may have gone quiet, but her light has never dimmed. She remains not only a music icon, but a living testament to resilience and reinvention. 3. Whitney Houston, a stolen voice. She was once an angel with a voice from God. This is how people spoke of Whitney Houston. She was one of the greatest vocalists of all time. The world stood still when she sang, "I Will Always Love You." But what happens when that very voice, the soul of Whitney herself, starts to shatter? In 1995, when Whitney entered the recording studio to work on the soundtrack for Waiting to Exhale, something strange happened. She could no longer reach the high notes as easily as she once did. Her voice became hoarse, breathy, and lost its clarity, the same clarity that fans had always admired. Many thought it was just a brief period of exhaustion, but for Whitney, it was the first warning of an impending tragedy. As time passed, her voice gradually abandoned her without warning, with no clear explanation other than long sleepless nights, alcohol, cigarette smoke, and the haunting presence of white powder in the shadows. In the spotlight and the loneliness backstage, Whitney turned to drugs as a way to fill the void, but in doing so, she unknowingly harmed the most precious thing she had, her voice. In 2005, vocal coach Gary Cantona met Whitney again, not at a grand stage, but in a small room where she could barely speak clearly. Gary recalls, "She had lost 99.9% of her voice. She couldn't sing, she could barely speak." Whitney cried as she struggled to sing a simple melody, something she could have done in her sleep just a few years earlier. That voice had once meant everything to her. It was the fame, the glory, the reason she lived. Now it was reduced to broken breaths, distorted sounds of a once glorious past, forgotten. More painful than losing her voice was the realization that it was a warning sign of the looming tragedy of Whitney Houston's life. People might blame her lifestyle, her early fame, or the people around her who failed to reach out as she sank lower. But in the midst of all that, there was a deep and lingering loneliness that only Whitney truly understood. Then, on February 11, 2012, in a hotel room in Beverly Hills, Whitney Houston passed away at the age of 48, just hours before she was set to appear at a major music event. On the table, authorities found drugs, alcohol, and a radio still playing an old song. An angel had flown away. But that voice, though worn down, still resonates forever in the memories of mankind. Not because of what she lost, but because of what she left behind. "If I should stay, I would only be in your way." Whitney had gone just as those lyrics foretold. But her voice remains as a permanent reminder of the cost of genius and the fragile beauty of the human voice. 4. Luther Vandross. A stroke took away a genius. Luther Vandross, with his honeyed voice, deep and soothing like a prayer in the night, had been the heart of soul and R&B music for over 3 decades. Each note he sang drew the listener closer to their memories and unspoken love. He didn't need a flashy stage or complicated choreography. He just stood there, in front of the microphone, letting the music flow like a miracle. But that miracle shattered one morning in April 2003, when Luther suffered a sudden stroke at home, falling into a coma for 2 months. When he awoke, part of his body was lost to him, and the most painful blow of all was the loss of his voice. The soft, high notes he once effortlessly hit were now distorted and hoarse. He tried to sing, to find the melody, but the sound that came out was a cruel imitation of the past. Half paralyzed, he had to relearn every movement, every syllable, like a child learning to speak for the first time. And throughout that process, he knew he had lost the most important thing, the soul of the artist in that voice, the very thing that had sustained him. Despite the pain, Luther released Dance with My Father as a final farewell. He could no longer perform on stage, but he still poured his heart and breath into every song. The album became his final living legacy, earning a Grammy Award. But the price he paid was the eternal silence. On July 1st, 2005, Luther Vandross passed away due to complications from his stroke. He left quietly, like the final ballad drifting into the night. And in that silence, his whispered words could still be heard. "If I can, let me dance with my father again." A soul that once sang to melt the hearts of the world was forced into silence by fate, a heartbreaking tragedy that still echoes. 5. Chaka Khan, a voice poisoned. In the late 1990s, Chaka Khan, the powerhouse vocalist who had once dominated the stage with her electrifying voice, began to notice a strange shift in her singing. The high notes that she had once effortlessly delivered with absolute confidence no longer rang out the same way. Instead of the powerful, heart-stirring tones she was known for, her voice began to take on a hoarse, strained quality, struggling to reach those once commanding highs. One night, during a performance in Los Angeles, Chaka Khan stood before thousands of fans, the bright stage lights shining down on her. But as she began to sing, an unsettling feeling washed over her. The high notes, once so effortless, now felt empty, fragmented. A strange, painful sensation overtook her. What had been a performance months in the making was now a moment of deep disappointment. Before the eyes of thousands, her voice couldn't meet the expectations, and it was in that moment that she realized something very serious was happening to her voice. At first, she dismissed it, thinking it could be fatigue or a minor health issue. But as time went on, the situation worsened. During a recording session in 1999, as she prepared for a new album, her voice weakened even further. Panic began to build inside her. It wasn't just her voice. The passion and musical power she had spent her life building seemed to be slipping away too. She hurried to doctors, hoping for answers, but all she received was silence. Doctors found no clear medical cause, no indication of a serious problem. But Chaka Khan couldn't shake her growing fear. Soon, whispers began to circulate in the industry. Rumors spread about a drug that she had been given by producers over the years, a drug she believed would help her relax and perform better in the studio. But what no one knew was that this drug, with its unclear origins, had slowly begun to poison her voice, taking away a piece of the soul of the music she had created. The following months were filled with frustration. Chaka Khan tried everything she could to restore her voice, but she could never regain the power it once had. In 2001, after a long struggle with her health, she announced her withdrawal from the stage. This decision was not only due to illness, but also because of the deep pain of not being able to continue contributing to the music that had been her life's work. By 2004, she was forced to cancel an international tour, marking the end of a performance schedule that was expected to generate millions in revenue. 6. Tina Turner, a legend, bids farewell to her career due to losing her voice. Tina Turner, the queen of powerful ballads and fiery performances, is a living symbol of music and resilience. However, in 2013, an unexpected tragedy struck. Sharing the same fate as Luther Vandross, Tina suffered a severe stroke. Her entire world crumbled as she faced the loss of her ability to walk, unable to stand on her own 2 feet. The feeling of loss was overwhelming, not just because her body was paralyzed, but because her voice, the one she had devoted her life to, was now at risk. She had to work with physical therapists, and each step became a fierce battle. But that wasn't all. In 2016, she received more bad news. Tina was diagnosed with bowel cancer. Her body, which had already endured so much throughout her life, was now under attack again. The treatment caused her blood pressure to rise and led to kidney failure. Everything seemed to pile up, and it was a huge shock that she could not prepare for. On November 29, 2009, in the quiet space of her room in Zurich, Tina Turner made the biggest decision of her career. Despite having dedicated her life to music, her declining health made it impossible to continue. After months of struggling to record, her once powerful voice could no longer reach the high notes and had become weak and raspy. Doctors diagnosed chronic health problems that affected her ability to sing. With a heavy heart, Tina announced her retirement from the stage, partly because her body could no longer keep up, but also because she didn't want to be a burden to her fans. It was a heartbreaking farewell, as Tina Turner, the queen of rock and roll, had to give up her passion, closing a glorious chapter of her career. 7. James Brown, when the soul music legend falls silent. James Brown, the father of soul music, was a musical legend, a symbol of strength, power, and boundless passion. However, in the later years of his life, his health gradually deteriorated in an inevitable manner. Illnesses, ranging from heart disease to the physical decline due to aging, began to torment James Brown. Doctors warned him, advising him to stop, to cease the strenuous performances and rest. But he ignored all advice, continuing to step on stages, an undying warrior. In 2004, he still went on with his relentless tours despite clear signs of weakness. But one evening, at a large venue, when the music started playing, everything suddenly changed. James Brown's voice suddenly cut out. He couldn't produce any sound at all. Everything froze in a horrifying moment as the audience stood in shock, unable to believe what they were witnessing. After that performance, his condition worsened. A week later, James Brown could not speak a word. His voice had completely vanished, as if the life of music had abandoned him forever. Though he continued treatment and searched for ways to recover, the signs of weakness were irreversible. And in the end, in 2006, James Brown passed away quietly, his voice silenced after enduring prolonged suffering. 8. Sam Cooke, a secret nobody knew. Sam Cooke was the pioneer of soul music with his sweet and seductive voice, with iconic songs like A Change Is Gonna Come and Cupid. However, behind the glitter and the high performances, there lies a tragic story that few know about. In the 1960s, when Sam Cooke's career was at its peak, he was an idol for millions of fans worldwide. His voice became a symbol of freedom and hope, but the higher he rose, the heavier the pressures weighed on him. Faced with the stresses of his work and personal life, Sam's health began to decline, something only those closest to him could notice. One evening in 1964, in a meeting with a producer in Los Angeles, Sam faced a challenge he had never encountered before. The producer asked him to hit a high note in a new song. This was a request Sam Cooke had easily conquered throughout his career. But this time, when he sang, something was wrong. His voice cracked on the highest notes. In that moment, the producer stood still, his eyes filled with unmasked disappointment. Sam Cooke was officially removed from the upcoming project. From that day forward, Sam Cooke's life and career took a turn. He was no longer the powerful, confident artist with a commanding voice. Late nights filled with partying and drinking became his way of seeking oblivion. Parties, affairs, everything became an escape for a soul struggling with disappointment and helplessness. Then, on December 11, 1964, Sam Cooke passed away in a mysterious way. Although there are many theories surrounding his death, no one can deny that the greatest tragedy in his life was the moment he lost that confidence in himself. Sam Cooke, who once sang songs that changed the world, was now just a shadow of himself, never to find the voice of his glorious days again. His death remains one of the great mysteries in the music industry, a tragedy without a resolution. 9. Anita Baker, when the voice knows how to bleed. Anita Baker, the queen of R&B, with her deep, warm, and soulful voice, melted millions of hearts through her sweet love ballads. Songs like Sweet Love and Caught Up in the Rapture made her a household name and propelled her to the peak of her career in the late 80s. However, it was precisely during this time that an unexpected tragedy struck. In 1989, when her career was at its height, Anita woke up one morning feeling a sharp pain in her throat. She coughed up blood, her throat burned, and she couldn't make a sound. The suffocating and painful sensation spread, leaving her unable to sing a single note. She decided to see a doctor, and the diagnosis was shocking. She had a serious vocal cord condition that threatened to permanently end her singing career. For an artist like Anita, losing her voice was a nightmare. Rumors about stress and pressure at work began to spread. Everything she had worked so hard for over the years was now at risk of being taken away. Despite trying every possible treatment, including surgery and therapy, her voice would never return to what it once was. Anxiety, disappointment, and helplessness began to consume her. In 1994, after months of struggling with her health, Anita decided to take a break from her music career to recover. Though she returned in the late 90s, Anita's voice was no longer as strong and warm as before. Her career never reached the heights it once did, and the sorrow of what was lost would forever haunt her. 10. Al Green, the shocking event that silenced his voice. Al Green was one of the standout voices in soul music with his captivating love songs. However, at the end of the 70s, Al Green's life changed abruptly when a tragic event occurred. That night in his apartment, Al Green stood silently by the window, his face tense after a heated argument. In just a few seconds, tragedy struck. His girlfriend, in a fit of anger, took her own life right there. The sound of the gunshot shattered the silence, and the room became still. Al Green, unable to believe his eyes, stood motionless, his hands trembling. In the days that followed, the pain and guilt gnawed at him, second by second. His once alluring voice seemed to disappear, replaced by silence. The emotional damage left Al unable to sing the love songs he had once shared with the world. For a long time afterward, Al Green withdrew from the stage and turned to religious life, declaring that he no longer wished to continue his singing career. Though he later returned to music, the emotional wounds and painful memories of that event left his career forever altered. The rumors and gossip surrounding the incident continued to haunt him, changing the image of the legend. 11. Gladys Knight, a wound that silenced a voice. Gladys Knight is one of the most famous voices in the history of soul music, but she has also faced painful losses. In 1999, in the dim light of a quiet night, Gladys Knight stood alone in a dark room. She held a photo of her son, who had tragically passed away in an accident earlier that February. Her red-rimmed eyes, face full of pain, bore the marks of a loss that could never be erased. She sat quietly, unable to believe what she had just faced. A long moment of silence passed before she gently placed the photo down, her hands trembling. After that tragedy, sleepless nights and nightmares followed. Gladys Knight's voice, once powerful and full of emotion, now seemed to lack the sharpness it once had. The high notes that she had once easily reached became a challenge. Months later, rumors began to spread. She can't sing anymore. These words weren't just public gossip, but a painful truth that Gladys had to face. She could no longer perform the way she once did, unable to bring her voice confidently to the stage. Both her physical and mental health had severely declined, and the stage lights seemed to dim in her eyes. Although she eventually returned to music in the early 2000s, Gladys Knight was never able to return to the passionate and vibrant performer she once was. She remained a legend, but the emotional scars left an indelible mark on her career. 12. Marvin Gaye, a family tragedy that shattered a career. It seems that the psychological shadows never leave the lives of talented artists. Marvin Gaye, the R&B music legend, lived a life full of highs and sorrows. However, in the final years of his life descended into tragedy. In the 1980s, after a tense breakup with his wife, Marvin faced severe psychological disorders. Along with that, his mental health began to deteriorate, which affected his once captivating and emotionally rich voice. The flexibility in his vocal range, which he had once effortlessly mastered, now became dry and uncontrolled. Friends, colleagues, and family began to worry about his health, but Marvin seemed unable to help himself. They watched as a great artist, once able to manipulate his voice with remarkable skill, slowly lost the musical instincts he had once possessed. But the true tragedy came on April 1st, 1984, when, during a heated family argument, Marvin Gaye was shot and killed by his father. A music legend, a captivating voice full of emotion, was forever silenced in a tragic and unexpected death. Marvin Gaye's voice was not only silenced by his psychological struggles, but also by the collapse of his family. His career, filled with love songs and deep emotions, ended in a tragic manner, becoming one of the most heartbreaking stories in music history. 13. Beyonce. When the Queen of Pop was diminished. Amidst the brilliant stage lights, Beyonce, the woman of exceptional talent, conquered the world with her powerful and emotional songs. But behind that perfection was a human body, one that couldn't always withstand the demanding nature of her career. In 2012, after giving birth, Beyonce faced significant changes to her body and voice. Although she returned to the stage with powerful performances, strange signs began to emerge. In 2016, during a performance of Halo, something unbelievable happened. Beyonce could not hit a high note, one that she had previously conquered with ease. The whole auditorium fell silent, fans started to murmur, and rumors quickly spread. Was it fatigue from her intense schedule, or were there more serious health issues? Unanswered questions continued to haunt everyone. Despite Beyoncé's insistence that she had recovered, concerns about her health gradually became a hot topic in the media and among fans. Each time she appeared on stage, her brilliant spotlight no longer seemed the same. Her powerful sound waves, her once perfect high notes, were no longer flawless like before. Beyoncé's health became an enigma, leaving people wondering whether that brilliant light could continue to shine or would eventually fade away. 14. Mariah Carey. The cruelty of pressure. Mariah Carey, one of the greatest vocalists in the world, won the hearts of millions of fans with her unmatched high notes. However, after her success, her career began to face immense pressure from the music industry. In the early 2000s, while Mariah was at the peak of her career, she suddenly found herself caught in an unrelenting cycle. Record labels demanded new albums, continuous touring, and no time for rest. The feeling of being trapped in a packed schedule with no space for herself led Mariah to experience extreme stress. The constant pressure to produce new songs without time to reflect wore her down. In 2001, during a live performance, Mariah Carey faced a terrifying incident. While singing one of her favorite songs, she couldn't hit the high notes that everyone expected. Her voice was no longer clear, no longer perfect as it once had been, a mistake no one could have anticipated. Immediately, rumors spread about her health and the stress she was under. Fans and the media began to question her ability to continue in the music industry. While Mariah Carey remained a shining star, her story became a cautionary tale about the cruel realities of the music industry, where artists sometimes lose control of their lives and careers. These pressures not only affected her mentally, but also led to her once extraordinary voice no longer being the same. 15. Ray Charles. The return of a ghost Ray. Charles, a musical icon of the 20th century, was a legend with a warm, soulful voice that moved listeners deeply. After many ups and downs in his life, he overcame his addiction and drug struggles to continue his brilliant music career. But behind his strength, Ray Charles was a lonely figure with wounds that never healed. Then, in his later years, a dark secret quietly returned, taking away the most precious thing he had. As he entered his final years, Ray Charles's body weakened, his endurance faded, but his concert schedule never ceased. The pressure from work, expectations from audiences, and producers pushed him into a battle with physical and emotional wounds. Once again, he quietly turned to drugs to escape his pain and retain some of the strength he had lost. During a performance in New York in 2003, the unthinkable happened. As Ray began to sing, his voice suddenly became hoarse, weak, unable to reach the high notes that he had once so easily conquered. A sense of suffocation, pain, and anguish seemed to pass through the music. The notes became a burden, no longer smooth, no longer full. No one could understand the devastation he was enduring. The audience, the family, were all silently fearful. Only Ray, silently battling himself on stage, knew that everything was no longer the same. But the worst was yet to come. After nights of not being able to deliver a complete note, doctors confirmed that Ray was not only battling a cruel liver cancer, but also silent pain from his return to addiction, which made his health deteriorate further. The voice that he had nurtured and protected throughout his life was now only a painful memory of a fading legend. And in 2004, when Ray Charles passed away, it wasn't just the loss of a great musical talent, but the loss of a man who had endured so much. A voice that had once resonated from the depths was now only a ghost of itself. Thus, we now have the answers to the tragedy of losing the voices of 15 legendary black artists. Untold stories, dark tragedies hidden under the spotlight, were not only battles with health, but also struggles with greater forces. Can we still believe in the perfection of the voices we once admired? The answer may forever remain a mystery. Thank you for watching, and if you want to learn more secrets, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories.